Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to my channel for another Hot Toys Star Wars The Clone Wars 1/6 scale figure unboxing and review. Today, we're taking a look at ARC Trooper Jesse. Now I got mine from toyswonderland.com. Link for that is in the description below. They do have pay in 4 and a reward system. While you're down there, why not hit that subscribe, bell notification icon and join button, so you're notified as soon as a brand new review goes live on the channel. As for the box art, front and center an image of the figure himself, and Star Wars in a metallic print. We also have a wraparound banner though, in blue and yellow to signify Clone Wars, plus another image of the figure, this time without the helmet on. Also it says Clone Trooper Jesse, but come on Hot Toys, you know it, we know it, I know it. This guy's an ARC Trooper, so that's probably what I'm going to be calling him throughout the course of this video. For the rest of the wraparound banner, more blue and yellow, and another image of ARC Trooper Jesse. I am probably offending some Star Wars fan out there that knows some deep cut info that explains why he's no longer an ARC Trooper. If you know, let me know in the comments down below. On the back, Clone Trooper Jesse, and of course, some warnings and legal info. Okay, this artwork I like. It's way better than what was printed on the front of the box. We have an image of Jesse blasting some clankers, but that blast is the wrong color. We have some embers down below, and Phase 2 Captain Rex in the background. I guess that image was taken before the whole Order 66 situation, that whole awkward mess. As for Jesse himself, we kinda know what to expect. Hot Toys, they have made a bunch of clones at this point. But I don't think I've been this excited for a clone in a while, and first in-hand impressions is actually pretty heavy. What we are going to do now though is get all of his accessories laid out in the light box and take a closer look at everything he comes with. Starting off with the display base first, which is done in the typical Star Wars style, being rectangular with the Imperial flooring sculpted in up on top, or Republic, depending on whether or not Jesse has received the message from the Emperor to do Order 66. You've got this darker gunmetal for the bottom, but up top, more of a warmer grey, with some very subtle red dry brushing around the edges, just to bring out that sculpted detail. Around the front, Star Wars Clone Trooper Jesse. Part of me kind of wishes that just said Jesse though. And up top, an adjustable crotch grabber. These are more part of his outfit granted than accessories, but they are removable, so we may as well discuss them now. Starting off with his 3-pack ammo pouch. Unfortunately, it's pleather. It is padded, so it's a little bit squishy, and these studs, they're not real, so don't try and open this. There is some greyish blue dry brushing around the edges for that animated aesthetic, and around the back, oh, would you look at that? A magnet. I wonder how this attaches. Spoiler alert, in the same way as the backpack, there's also a magnet inside this. There is this foam pad, so you protect the armor when you pop this on. No scratching, no colliding. Then the sculpt work for the backpack, super impressive. This is some very fine sculpted detail. And this piece almost looks like a speaker or a shower head. Not what it's supposed to be for, but I'm just calling it how it is. The paint applications, sharp as a pin. We've got this copper color, then over the top, dirt and grime, and some dry brushing around the edges, once again in that greyish blue. So the Clone Wars animated aesthetic lives on, even though this is a realistic style figure. Part of me does think that maybe they should have painted the backpack like the blaster pistols though, because surely that's supposed to be metal, right? The blaster pistols are cast in gunmetal, and as you can see, when the light hits them, they shine a treat. And there is a metric ton of silver dry brushing, not just around the edges either, but also on the main body. They look super weathered. Then for the barrels, actual holes, so maybe one day Hot Toys can give us blast effects for these things. I reckon Hot Toys might be setting us up for it, because the DC-15C also has a peg port, and I'm pretty sure it's the same size as the DC-17 blaster pistols. So they could make one effect that's compatible with all the blasters. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but one day, surely. Now, you can slide this piece back, and I have been told it's supposed to be a stock, but Hot Toys done goofed, and it's nowhere near wide enough to slide all the way back like it's supposed to. So it'll literally just droop down and kinda hang out here, unless you push it up and have him gripping on the gun. The blaster itself is done in gunmetal, because it's a gun. It's also metallic, just like the pistols, with the same silver dry brushing. Plus, this time, some pops of copper. They're small, but they do make a difference. Speaking of small but making a difference, not the Emperor, because we've seen him before. Either way, I like the sculpt work. It looks like a hologram, and light passes through, because he's translucent plastic. You can tell this is the Emperor. But I don't care about him, I care about this. It's a holographic gunship. This is brand new for Jesse. Now the gunship is a little bit skinny, slightly stylized, but it's a hologram. It doesn't have to look exactly like a real gunship would. Then for the hologram projector, you remove the gunship and pop the Emperor in if you so choose. Maybe Jesse is receiving Order 66. It's well sculpted and well painted. Bright silver and also copper. This time, we don't just get a helmet, we also get an unhelmeted head sculpt. And if the question is, does this look like Tamura Morrison? Oh, it's him. From pretty much every angle too. Now, compared to the Hot Toys Captain Rex head sculpt, there are a lot of similarities. As there should be. They're supposed to be clones. And yes, they have reused a lot of this head sculpt from Captain Rex. How do I know that? Look at the shape of the furrowed brow. One raised eyebrow, the mouth is off to a subtle angle, and also he has the same wrinkling on his chin. That's where the similarities end, because the skin tone is different. The skin texture is a little bit more HD with Jesse. You can actually see individual pores. The 5 o'clock shadow is darker, and oh yeah, there's a huge Republic tattoo. Whereas with Rex, he's got the blonde hair. Does it bother me that the skin tones are slightly different? No, not really, because these guys, they're known named characters. Whereas with Clone Trooper Regs, they're all supposed to be identical. These little doohickeys, macro binoculars. You can pop these on the helmet and they move, which I will show you. There is some scratching and chipping around the edges, and it's an asymmetrical design. There's this kind of hump on one side and a little stripe. On the inside, they're not super detailed, but at the very least, there are 2 eye ports. And lastly, they've done it again. They've been stingy with the hands. Hot Toys, quit that. Don't be stingy. Surely hands can't be that expensive to produce. You've already paid for the mold once. Now, for the right side, we do have this 2-finger point. Maybe it's a finger gun hand. Then we have a single finger point for the left. We then have 2 trigger finger hands, 1 for either side. That is a good thing. And 1 open palm hand. Why not 2? Not sure. The armor plating does have some scratching on the surface, and for the glove itself, some wrinkling, and some stitch lines sculpted in. Plus it's painted in matte black. Now remember earlier when I said it's really difficult to get the blasters in his hands? That's because it is. As you can see, this grip is really tight. So if you are trying to finagle one of the weapons into his hands, trust me, heat them up first and thank me later. What we are going to do now, though, is get Jesse himself out here. Standing straight up and down in the light box, no crazy poses or accessories or anything like that. Even if you have never seen a Hot Toys clone before, they have released enough of these darn things that certain things, they're a given. Like the body choice, they have nailed the proportions for a clone body. Which isn't as easy as you might think, because don't forget it needs to be skinny enough so that when you put the armor on to bulk him up, he doesn't look too bulky. Like some of the old Sideshow ones, and the joints have to be good enough to hold poses with all that armor on, and the armor has to not move around a ton. They've nailed that at this point. They've gotten that down to a science. The second, weathering. I have no idea how they do the weathering as well as they do. Either it's printed on the surface with some kind of crazy modern printing technique, or it's painted with masks. However the heck they do it, it's beautiful. It looks super realistic. Now, back in the day, maybe it was a question. Ooh, will the weathering and paint applications look as good as the prototype for these clones? But not anymore. They've proven time and time again that they know exactly how to do weathering. So with all of that being said, packaged up and put in front of us in the form of ARC Trooper Jesse, do I like him? Is he good? Oh, he's not just good. He's very good. Up close and personal, kicking things off with the bucket first. without the macro binoculars on, and yes, we will install them in just a second. Now the helmet, it's a typical Phase 2 clone helmet. No rangefinder, nothing crazy. I like the sculpt. I think Hot Toys, they've nailed the size, the proportions of a Phase 2 clone helmet by now, and thank goodness, because they've made quite a few of them. I like how thin the mouth is, the glossy visor, which is a separate piece of plastic to add some depth. You've got some silver paint down below for the vents, and a massive Republic cog front and center. The blue, chipped and scratched and weathered, the same thing can be said for the white as well. Now, some people have complained about these little stripes down below. Some people want more. Some people want less. Some people want them to be blue, and some people prefer the grey, but for me, I'm happy with the choice that Hot Toys made here. I think it's a little bit more animation accurate. Around the back, we do, of course, have the vent and the black stripe that runs all the way along. Now, as for installing the macro binoculars, this I really like. Now, I'm aware it's not Jesse's iconic look. For the most part in the show, he doesn't have the macro binoculars. But if you want to mix it up every now and then, switch up Jesse in the display, make him look a little bit different, pop them on. Go for it. The macro binoculars are articulated. You can have them up or down or somewhere in between. And luckily, even though the hinge is very free floating, it is sturdy enough to hold them in position. Now, I am kind of worried about this piece scratching up this top fin because it sits on there really securely, but as long as you're not ratcheting this up forward and back constantly a bunch of times and pushing it really firmly in position, you should be totally fine. Call me crazy, but as good as this head sculpt is, and as realistic as it does indeed look like Temuera Morrison, I'm not going to be using it. I'm going with the bucket in my display because I want my clones ready for battle. Just standing there holding the helmet, it's an option. It's totally a thing you can do, but for me, yeah, bucket on. I do, however, like this head sculpt on the body. It sits a little bit low, so it obscures a bunch of his neck, but you can roll the suit down and expose a skin tone neck, which is fully sculpted with skin texture and painted as well. Versus the regs that we just reviewed on the channel, their necks, they're unpainted. They're just black plastic. So Hot Toys, they very clearly took the time to nail the aesthetics of what Jesse would look like with this Temuera Morrison head sculpt on. If you are curious how to pop the macro binoculars on, first thing, I would always advise following the instructions over a YouTube tutorial, but still, I'll show you how to do it anyway. The first thing you want to do is grab the included tool and pop out these little earpieces. It's kind of difficult to do on camera though, but you basically want to wedge this tool in and remove the ears. Set them aside for later. Now they do go in specific ways depending on which side you remove, so it's not like you can swap them. So just make sure you remember which one went in which side. Then you want to bring in the macro binoculars. A little handy hint, this line goes on the right side. So you slot the macro binoculars in over these earpieces. They will kind of lock in position. Then bring these earpieces back in, and as you can see, they're keyed. So they go in a certain way. Then you pop them in, and fingers crossed if you've done everything correctly, the macro binoculars are in position, and you can actuate them up and down. Around the back, he does have his ARC Trooper style backpack on. Don't believe me? Well, here's the one that came with 5s from Sideshow. It's the exact same design, but it is painted differently, and it works slightly differently as well. The Sideshow one, it had a crevice for his little back piece to slot into, but the Hot Toys one, it has this ledge down below, so it's supposed to lock on a little bit more securely. It doesn't really though. The magnet, it's nowhere near strong enough, so if you bump this, it's going to fall off pretty much all the time. Underneath the backpack though, if you do want to ditch it, there is some paint work. You've got washes in the crevices and dirt and grime pretty much everywhere. Back around the front, the same thing. Now up top, this is new. He's got the double pauldron. As far as I'm aware, this is the first Hot Toys clone to feature a double pauldron. It is, however, the animation style, so it comes down to a point around the front, and that does introduce another issue that we will touch on a little bit later. It is all sculpted rubbery plastic as well. There's this kind of leather grain texture on the surface, there's speckling of dirt over the top, it's black on this side, whereas on the blue side, to mimic wear and tear as it's being scuffed and scratched, it's this lighter blue. We also have washes in there as well. Now, this little ammo pouch piece is magnetic, and it is adjustable. You can turn it pose depending. Or you can remove it if you want to. Then, over the top of his standard clone armor, there's this big chunky piece of extra armor. I like the grey color choice, and I dig the blue stripe down the front. A ton of scratching and so much weathering over the top of all of that as well. I feel like I've said that a ton of times, but it's quite literally the best way I can describe what's going on. For his arms, you can see the fabric undersuit, and they're an asymmetrical design. We have the standard clone armor design with this elastic strap so you can adjust this shoulder pad, a blue stripe going down, and on one side, a little rocket. Plus we have the multicolored switches. Then on the other side, I'm pretty sure this would be his communicator. Or at least it would be for a standard clone. This time, grey and blue, rather than white and blue. Speaking of standard clones, from the front, his belt looks like the belt of a standard clone, but it isn't. Around the side, we've got some different style pouches. And around the back, we've got these ammo pouches. Kind of like this one from the front, but instead of being pleather, they're fully sculpted. Why wasn't this one fully sculpted? Still not sure. His karma is full fabric, although we have some screen printing on the front. And I don't love the color of weathering. It kind of looks like he spilled his coffee on his karma. I would have preferred a black wash rather than brown. We do have some pleather straps that do work their way around the front, underneath the belt. You have some non-removable ammo pouches and also some holsters for his DC-17 blaster pistols. And the pistols, they sit in there very securely this time. Coming down to his legs, you can see a bit more of his clone ribbed fabric bodysuit poking through, which, by the way, is great for posing. Nice and stretchy, very forgiving. His thigh armor is hard plastic and adjustable, but check out this stripe down the front. It's very sharply sculpted, very defined. His knee pads have an interesting design on them, and around the back, some rubbery plastic straps, so they're also quite adjustable. Just like everything here, all of this stuff can be moved around and tweaked. His shin armor, all new for Jesse, but now that Hot Toys have made this style of shin armor, ARC Trooper style, they can make more ARC Troopers, and I'm really hoping they do. Basically, it's some extra armor over the top of his standard clone armor. Say that 10 times fast. Just like this plate up top and also these panels on his boots, because he needs some extra protection when you're kicking butts as hard as Jesse is. Then on the underside, some fully sculpted and painted tread. For a quick side-by-side comparison, this is the shot I've been buzzing to put together ever since Hot Toys announced Jesse, and it doesn't disappoint. In the middle, Jesse, left and right, Sideshow, ARC Troopers, Echo and Fives. Hot Toys, you really need to make your own versions of Echo and Fives, but for now, the Sideshow ones, they complement Jesse beautifully. Although their blues are different and they're a little bit taller. No, that's not lens distortion, they are genuinely just bigger figures. Now you could always switch out the shitty Sideshow bodies, which, trust me, are actually that bad. They have fallen over so many times trying to make this shot, for a modern day Hot Toys clone body. That would fix the scaling and also fix the toppling over issue. See, now that we've switched them out for Hot Toys clones, the scaling is far more consistent because they're on the exact same bodies. That's not to say they're identical though, because they aren't. Vaughn, quite clearly, is a little bit taller. Not to the shoulders, mind you, just to the top of the helmet, because his bucket, being the Commander Cody shape, is just a taller helmet design. Now the armor, the colors, not super consistent. Vaughn, very stark white, and his blue is more vibrant. Jesse, a little bit dingier and darker, both for the white and the blue. Then Rex, still have no idea what Hot Toys were thinking. That green tinge to the armor, and then the more vibrant blue. He doesn't really match any of the existing Hot Toys clones. Like this Phase 2 Reg, who is on the exact same body as Jesse. Proportions are the same, height is the same, but the armor, significantly different. Not only in the paint applications, but yes, that's a thing as well. Jesse is darker and dingier, like I just said, compared to the other two, but also compared to this Reg. And he's got so much more stuff on him, so visually speaking, he's the more interesting clone. Then alongside Ahsoka, she's taller than I was expecting. I thought she'd be tiny next to Jessie, but if you want to recreate those scenes between Ahsoka, Rex, and Jessie from Clone Wars Season 7, luckily now you can. Going over articulation, starting off with the helmet, which is on an articulated neck. There's a ball joint at the bottom and a double ball peg up on top. Combined, looking forward to there, looking up to there, swivel and pivot side to side. The arms will go up to there. They will go forward and back before colliding with his pauldron. Butterfly joint at the shoulder that hinges up and down. Swivel at the bicep. Double bend at the elbow on soft ratchets, but you only get just past 90 because these two pieces of armor, they collide. Then for the hand, a hinge and swivel for the wrist peg. The torso does crunch forward and back, swivel and pivot a little. The legs will go forward to there before this piece of armor collides with the hips, but fret not, they can go a little bit further. Simply swivel this piece of armor out, then they can ratchet up a couple more clicks. Going out to there, swivel at the upper thigh, double bend at the knee going past 90, then a double ball peg for the ankle. Good for forward and back, swivel, and ankle rocker. Moving on to the 3 cool and 3 annoying things. The first annoying thing, the magnet for the backpack. It's far too weak, so when it comes to posing and you accidentally knock this thing, chances are 99% of the time it's going to go flying. How could Hot Toys have fixed this? Simple. A stronger magnet. The second annoying thing, pleather. Making these pouches out of pleather completely unnecessary because these ones, fully sculpted and painted out of plastic, and I reckon they look just as good. So if anything is going to deteriorate first on this guy, I reckon it's going to be these. The third annoying thing is kind of Hot Toys' fault, but also sort of not really. Lucasfilm is partially to blame. It's the design for the pauldron. I like the way it looks and it's animation accurate, but sometimes things that work in animation, they don't work practically, and this pauldron is absolutely one of them. Because if you bring his arm forward, this point on the front of the pauldron, it collides with the arm, and for a character that's known to shoot a blaster forward, as well as in other directions, this is simply not functional, because as you can see, he can't bring his arm up. The first cool thing is he has a fully painted and sculpted skin tone neck, and it's just hiding out under the bodysuit. You roll it down to expose it. And the best part about it, it makes that transition between the suit and the head sculpt that much more seamless. Now there is still a seam there, but if it was just fabric bodysuit going up underneath the neck, underneath the head sculpt, I don't think that would work as well as this does. The second cool thing, his removable macro binoculars. Not only the way they function though, I mean, I love that. Don't get me wrong, but when you remove them and you pop these little earpieces back in, they sit super flush. They're not sacrificing the look of either option, macro binoculars or no macro binoculars, just for the sake of a gimmick. The third cool thing, which I have complained about over and over again, every clone trooper that has come with these holsters, the pistols, they've sat in there really loosey-goosey. But I don't have to complain this time. In fact, it's a cool thing. The holsters, they are super grippy for the pistols. So when you slide them in, as you can see, they're in there securely. Wrapping up on Hot Toys ARC Trooper Jessie, aka Clone Trooper Jessie from Clone Wars Season 7. I've been waiting for a Hot Toys ARC Trooper for a very long time. I thought that it was a pipe dream. It was never going to happen. When Hot Toys announced this guy, out of all the clones I have on pre-order, he was the one that shot right to the top of my hype list, and for very good reason, because I knew Hot Toys could deliver. And they did. This guy is sensational, but he ain't perfect. There is just one complaint that I have that is kind of driving me crazy. The more I think about it, the more frustrated I get. It's the pauldron. Why did they not go with the realistic style pauldron? He should absolutely be able to bring his arms forward, but he can't. This is a clone trooper that can't aim his blasters in front of him. He comes with dual wielding pistols, but he can't point them at clankers. That is craziness. And there are multiple different options that Hot Toys could have explored. They could have had a swappable pauldron with a different design, so you could have had the best of both worlds. Or even made it out of a flexible material so it could get out of the way for posing. But even though that is really frustrating, everything else is superb. The body choice, great as always, proportionate, and also in terms of articulation. The fabric bodysuit, no problems for posing. And the paint applications, second to none. Then we get to accessories. That's where this guy really starts to shine. We've got multiple different options for display. No backpack, or yes, backpack. You can take off the macro binoculars or pop them on, up or down. And a Tamura Morrison head sculpt. Sometimes Hot Toys skimp out on the Tem head sculpts and don't give them to us, but this one's right up there with the best of the best. It looks just like him. So, at the end of the day, if you even have the slightest inclination to pick this up, get him before he's gone, because those old Sideshow ones, they are going for crazy prices on the aftermarket. Now, I got mine from toyswonderland.com. Link for that is in the description below. They have pay in 4 and a reward system. While you're down there, why not hit that subscribe, bell notification icon, and join button if you like the sound of seeing your name in the end credits of my reviews. Like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next video.